From the very beginning, colonialism in America meant competition. European countries were eager to gobble up as much land as possible in the New World. Sometimes this competition turned into open warfare, and the French and Indian War is a perfect example of this. Here's a crash course of 5 things about the war to get you up to speed. North America was a big, beautiful place full of endless opportunities, and Great Britain and France each wanted a piece of the action. The British controlled their 13 colonies and were looking to expand west. The French occupied Canada and were looking to expand south. It was inevitable that they'd bump into each other, and that's exactly what happened in the Ohio River Valley, an important trading area with access to the Mississippi River. The French and Indian War marked the debut of 21-year-old George Washington, a lieutenant colonel for the militia in the British colony of Virginia. In 1754, he was ordered to protect a British fort near what is now Pittsburgh. On the way, Washington encountered a French military unit, and the two sides fought in the first battle of the French and Indian War, the Battle of Jumonville Glen. Washington was young, but he was quickly gaining the experience he would need to eventually command the Continental Army. Years of territorial scuffles turned into full-blown declarations of war in 1756. As fighting broke out, the British and French sought allies among the local Native American populations. The French were familiar with many tribes through trade and recruited the Potawatomi, Winnebago, Ojibwa, Mississauga, and the Huron, while the British turned to the Iroquois Confederacy. At first, the French were winning, a lot. They simply had more troops and better supplies than the British Army and drove them back towards the 13 colonies. But the tide turned in 1757 when British Secretary of State William Pitt took control of the war effort. Dreaming of a vast British Empire, he made it his mission to defeat the French in North America, pouring in generous funds to beef up military resources on the ground. The war ended with the French defeat at the Battle of Quebec and the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 1763. The British gained control of Canada and all land east of the Mississippi River. It may seem that the British made out well after all was said and done, but there was a catch. You see, William Pitt borrowed heavily to finance the French and Indian War, which left his nation in tons of debt. To make up for it, the British taxed American colonists up the wazoo. Americans didn't particularly appreciate this. Years of protests, rallies, town hall meetings, and petitions would eventually lead to the American Revolution and the creation of the United States. The French and Indian War may not have had the glorious battles or fearless heroes of other great conflicts, but it was one of the most consequential wars in American history. It also opened the eyes of a young military leader to the tyranny of the British, a man who would go on to be the first American president.
Be fly as fuck, you know them bitches be stalking my niggas. That shit'll never change, and it's the same with all my niggas. City to city, I should be at home. That's what my ribs say. But bitch, I'm grown. I'm in these streets and closed caption. Niggas know we bout that action. If a nigga play with me, then my Hakim gon' let him have it. Hey, think you the shit, this truth the shit. Nigga play, I let that Ruger hit. Get on them tracks, they be like, who is this? I'm rude with it. Ain't got no manners, all them pussy niggas talking shit. Y'all know they can't stand us, but we U.P.K. Louisiana, bitch, that's what I'm ripping. And my niggas solid number, real ones in my section. If you wanna get down, put your boots on, start stepping. Brotherhood is a weapon. Brotherhood is a weapon. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. If I die for my niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. Brotherhood is a weapon. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. If I die for my niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood I lay my life down right now for all my sisters and brothers, because I love them. I see them dapping and hug them. It's amazing to see how well we adapt from the struggle. Born again from a life of sin, trapped in the gutter. My mind frame was to kill my own kind. Feeling inferior, way time for why. Take your life or let you take mine. That's when I realized the slaves killing slaves while the white man live to get old. We in them graves. Shit got me feeling played. I opened the Bible, went through them records, found out we was royalty, a nation to be respected. But in this world we rejected, we hated for our complexion. Still fighting to get accepted. We hear the truth and reject it, but love is getting corrected. And all my niggas correct me. The commandments, the foundation we erected. Brotherhood is a weapon. Brotherhood is a weapon. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. If I die for my niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. Brotherhood is a weapon. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. If I die for my niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. Hey, hey. Hey, hey.
Same old same.
They killed, give me Isaiah 14 and 21. They did the same thing to my people. So you said that they put millions of my houses. Yes, you said. Should a murderer go to jail for murdering? Absolutely. Should a thief go to jail when he steals? Absolutely. Should a robber pay back the money he robbed? Absolutely. So why shouldn't the white man pay for what he did? That's right.
One day you'll see just how it feels. Payback is a dog. Payback is a dog. Payback is a dog. Payback is a
I'm in a hell of a hole, was never expected to grow. This obstacle sat in the road, that a result of me selling my soul. The story I'm telling is cold, but yet it's what everyone knows. The white man's the devil is known. America was never our home. Only a place of captivity, safe facility, hating, disfigure me. They claim that I'm lazy, be killing me. Maybe the slavery draining my energy. 400 years and counting. The trail of my tears is countless. The fact that I'm here is astounding, but I can't wait till this shit is surrounded. Ready to tangle my king and the angel, be ready to rap. Crack in the sky, nuclear missiles and make it official. I'm capturing every cracker surviving. Put them all in chains where they need to be. Slavery for me. And let the whole world see that with them in the cages, safer in the streets. Put the dog on a leash. Get resolved for the beast. 144, get the ruler show, we could all be at peace. As soon as the trumpets are sound, your kingdom, we busting it down. The only way justice is found, the time for your judgment is now.
You'll see just how it feels. Payback is a dog. Payback is a dog. Payback is a dog. Payback is a dog.
Look, ain't no remorse in my blood, Slim. It won't be no compromise. Now it's time to feed the worms. Watch his body turn to flies. I clutch iron while you trust the lie.
Back around like a carousel. Check, check, check. Check, check, check. You might have to twist the gain up. No, the gain is the circle, the knob. That sounds too well. That's coming through on Reggie's. Check, check, check. All right. If you can fix the camera, then we too up. We ready to rock and roll. Just center it. It's looking all crazy. Check, check, check. Most High in Christ. Yeah, the water. Yeah, that's good. Shalom. Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah Barakatah to the brothers. Yahweh Shamar Alatah Bahashim Yahweh Shah. To all my sisters, I'm priests and offers of 1,000. Bon Kayal, coming out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. Yeah. And this is the Israelite School, Universal Practical Knowledge. And we're coming out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under the operational direction of Commanding General YAHANNA. All right. If you are not in the I.S.U.P.K, you are not in the truth. All fake, so-called fake Israelite camps been ordered to come together, to gather together in the spirit of serving the Lord, man. And that's done here within the schools of the Israelite School, Universal Practical Knowledge, man. One mind, one body, one spirit. That's what we are. And the purpose or the mission of the I.S.U.P.K is that we teach the truth about the Bible to the so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. We teach that so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians are God's chosen people, not the people that are inhabiting the land of Israel at this point in time, not the people that are dropping bombs on the Palestinians, and not differentiating them from the terrorist group Hamas, if you call them a terrorist group. Some people identify America as a terrorist group. Some people identify the police force, the U.S. military, as terrorist groups. But we are not speaking about those people. We're talking about God's chosen, the real Israelites of the Bible, so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Indians, Native Americans, man. You're God's chosen people. You're not hearing that. You ain't going to hear that nowhere else on earth. Nowhere else on earth are they teaching any value to be placed upon the lives of so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, but within the confines of the Israelite School, Universal Practical Knowledge, under Commanding General YAHANNA. It's very, very important. Commanding General YAHANNA is a righteous leader. The issue with Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians is we lack leadership. I mean, we have so-called leaders, whether they be your pastor, whether they be the latest and greatest entertainer, the latest and greatest athlete, but those are not the true leaders of our people. The true leaders of our people would follow righteous examples like in Christ or in the Most High Power, all right? The true leaders of our people follow God. And I can't say that about any of the so-called puppets that they promote for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians to follow. All right. If you can, we're going to open up with this scripture in Jeremiah chapter 14 and 2. If you can, give me the book of Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 2. And we're going to set it. This is a continuation of the last class we went over. We're talking about Native Indians or Israelites. The so-called Native Indian, the so-called Native American, the Choctaw, the Blackfoot, the Iroquois, the Lumbee, the Apache, the Comanche, the Blackfoot, the Tuscarora. Those tribal nations belong to a greater nation, the nation of Israel, man. And that nation of Israel was determined via the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, specifically Jacob. Shalom, what's up, Adawan? You want it, sir? Okay, Most High in Christ, Most High in Christ. But Most High in Christ. But when we think about the bloodline of the Israelites, the progenitor or the forefathers, the patriarchs of our nation, of our great nation, begins with Jacob, who was the son of Isaac, who was the son of Abraham. And you got to understand that Jacob had 12 sons. From those 12 sons, they became the chiefs, or the leaders, the heads of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. Okay, ain't no 13th tribe like Arthur Kessler expounds upon in his book, The 13th Tribe. You cannot invalidate you can no longer invalidate the truth or the position of so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians in the world. Oh, that's fly. That's fire. Salakia. The truth about God's chosen people is being revealed to the earth. that truth will no longer be suppressed, regardless of what Mike DeSantis is doing in Florida, trying to suppress the truth about history by doing away with teaching about critical race theory, not wanting to give any credence to the 1619 Project, banning woke indoctrination via literature and via any of the lesson plans that the teachers are presenting to the students in Florida, which is it is a southern state. That's the dirty South. And they have a very rich history of hating God's chosen people, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, okay? The truth about those individual groups, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, is that we're one family and we lack leadership. We lack righteous leadership, all right? But there is hope, and that hope is found within the doors, within the walls of I.S.U.P.K classrooms all over the earth, man. We got schools everywhere, all right? So there is absolutely no reason for you to be dumb and ignorant to who you actually are. You should know what time it is. Everybody has a smartphone, 2023. Don't be the only dummy walking around with a smartphone in your pocket, all right? You can access our classes on all social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter or X. We're on YouTube. We're on MeWe. We're on Twitch. I mean, you name it, we're there, all right? We even have our own platform that Captain Katsuzah and several other brothers are developing, you know, for the sake of independence, for the sake of being self-sufficient, for the sake of combating censorship, which is a major problem. The powers that be don't want you to know that you're an Israelite if you're a so-called Negro. They don't want you to know you're an Israelite if you are a so-called Hispanic or Latino. They don't want you to know that you're an Israelite if you are a Native American. And their MO is to divide and conquer. They keep us divided and fighting against one another and us not recognizing each other as family, as blood relatives. We have a lot of work to do in this school, all right? We're getting back to that knowledge and understanding. It's going to be taught universally throughout the earth, and it's going to be put into practice. The blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians are one family, and we have to love one another, all right? We have to keep God's law, statutes, and commandments, all right? We have to put those things into practice, okay? You're not going to learn that at Lewis Chapel. You're not going to learn that at Simon Temple. They're not teaching this in Manna or Abney Chapel, or you name a church, and I'll discredit it with whatever philosophy, whatever doctrine they're teaching. They're teaching Christianity, which promotes white supremacy. Okay. All right. We said Jeremiah 14:2.
It's the book of Jeremiah, chapter 14, verse 2. Judah mourneth,
Right.
and the gates thereof languish. They are black unto the ground.
That's right. Jeremiah, you know, the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah, and Jeremiah recognized what was happening to his people way back when, man, before antiquity. All right. This is ancient times. This is when this is transpiring. He said that Judah mourneth. Who is Judah? Judah would be, you know, the fourth born son of Jacob. All right. Judah would be the forefather or the progenitor of the so-called Negroes. All right. But we're talking about Judah and them being in a state of mourning. I mean, what do you do when you mourn? You're mourning because someone has been unalived or someone has passed away. You're mourning because you're in poverty. You're mourning because, you know, you live in dysfunction. You live in a single parent household, born in a mousetrap, right? You're mourning because you don't have a pot to piss in nor a window to throw it out of. You're mourning because you go to school and the kids are picking at you because you don't have the latest and greatest in fashion. That's why Judah, or the so-called Negroes, are in mourning, okay? And it says what? And the gates
Thereof languish.
What do you think? What does that mean? The gates thereof languish. What is a gate used for?
The gate will be used to keep, people out or to protect the people inside.
Right. The gate sets up everybody say parameter, right? It's like a barrier, okay? And it's to protect what's on one side, and it's to also, it could be a form of protection for whatever's on the outside of that gate. That's a first line of defense. Like your skin is a gate. It's the barrier, right? That keeps diseases and other types of pathogens out of your body. But if you got a cut, that gate is languishing somewhere. There is an opening. It's been breached. It's been compromised. Okay, so you think about the gates that are supposed to be protecting the so-called Negroes. Okay, where are they? Where are the gates? And what those gates are is the leadership. That's what it translates to. Okay, you got to think this is a black book. This book was so poetically written. It could only be poetic. It could only be written and deciphered by so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. We're the only people on earth that have our own subset of language, and contextually, it correlates to what has been written of old. The gates thereof. When you talk about a gate, the so-called oppressor does not speak that way. All right, he'll come up with Morse code, or he'll come up with some other way to communicate. But when it comes down to speech on this level, when we're the ones that have ebonics, we're the reasons why, there's slang. They have police departments. Within the department, they have individuals that, pride themselves on understanding the language of what's transpiring with respect to crime, the crime world within our communities. All right. Anyhow, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we'll just say black. When we say black, that just means everybody, including Hispanics and Native Indians. All right. But we're always in a constant state of mourning because we lack leadership that is righteous. All of our leaders have flaws. They all have a chink in their armor. Okay, with the exception of if we were to follow Christ in all actuality. To call yourself a Christian in today's time, we already know what time it is with you. We know you don't keep no law, statutes, and commandments. You celebrate your birthday, you celebrate your mama's birthday, you celebrate Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter and Halloween and New Year's. You worship other gods, you smoke weed, you sleep with whores, you sleep with strange whores. That's what a Christian is. That's the personification of a Christian. How dare you call yourself a follower of Christ? Not my king, not Yahawashi Mashiach, whose name is the actual name of Christ. All right, he didn't do any of those things. He's the most perfect example of how to live. He's the most perfect example of black leadership. He is a gate that never languished. All right, and it says what?
Stop again.
No, you too out.
And the gates thereof languish.
Right.
They are black unto the ground.
Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, their leadership languish, but the Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, Judah, it says they are black unto what?
They are black unto the ground.
Right.
And the cry of Jerusalem is gone up.
That's right, man. The Israelites are black. BLACK. That's a well-known fact that you only find, within the pages of the Bible. Right. Society don't recognize the Israelites as being black. Society don't recognize the Hispanics and Native Indians as being God's chosen people. All right.
Yeah, quick roll call, brother.
Oh yeah, Most High in Christ. Who's in the class?
Yeah, quick roll call tonight. Sister Arabaz in the building.
For sure.
Brother Reggie here, of course. Sister Yapara now. Yarmal's Rib in the building. All right. Trooper Qadar in the building. You know what I'm saying? Qadar said they don't want us to be Jews or the people of the Bible. We both are black and true.
That's a fact.
Damn right, Qadar.
Damn right.
Jason checking in from the Bronx. What up, Jason?
Most High in Christ.
You know what I mean? And Trooper, who was Officer Kodam in the building.
Oh,
my man,
Shalom, Lord Christ. What's going on, my Lord?
Yeah, man. Y'all got any questions? Feel free to type your questions in the chat. And the water for checking in the class, man. Most high Christ.
Damn right. Give yourselves a hand for being in the class. You know. Shout out to everybody that's in the class, man. Some heavy hitters in the class, right? Some real stalwarts, you know, true followers of Christ in the class. Okay. You can't mistake them for Christians. Okay. They're not going to prayer night on Wednesday. All right. They didn't celebrate Thanksgiving because they know the truth. They know the truth of God. They know the truth of Christ. Salaki Adawan, young man Reggie, passing the microphone. Yeah. Yeah.
And Salaki, if I may, I was just thinking about like you talking about the Christians, right? You trying to change their mindset. It's like them hooked on a different type of drug. So I was just thinking earlier today, man, we really have to, the focus should be on these young brothers and these young sisters that don't have no leadership and no guidance about anything. You understand?
Right.
So we catch them. I spoke with a brother today. He said, you know, say young man just, you know, was in a gang and he seen him in McDonald's and was just curious about, you know what I'm saying, what this truth, you know what I'm saying, what it was that we was into. And we have to be as zealous as, you know, how they used to get us to always try to come to the Christmas programs and the you know, come to the Easter day with Easter and you know, the Christmas plays and all those things.
Right.
Once we have this truth, we have to be as zealous as going and speaking to the youth, man. That young brother with tattoos on his face, tattoos on his hand, we can't be afraid to talk to him. You understand? We got to walk to them and just be like, hey, brother, don't you know who you are? And just get it off, because nobody is trying to reach them. You know what I'm saying? We pretty much say, man, you know, he ain't got nothing to offer nobody. And that's what we're used to hearing as a nation of people.
Right.
That young sister that got that dress halfway up her leg, you know, looking nice, you know what I'm saying, trying to attract attention from a man. Well, there's a certain type of attention that sister needs, and not the type of attention that try to get between her legs. You understand?
Right.
That type of attention that says, hey, sis Salaki, you know who you is? You know where you come from? Oh, where you live at? Sis, bam. Instead of we be so eager to try to get that phone number and get that Instagram and get in between them legs, like we push this truth inside of that mindset. You understand?
That's right.
That Christian mindset is sick. And until they realize that it's a disease in their growth in real life, they're going to stay sick.
That's
but
right.
Somebody who just don't know what this thing is that we call life, we can teach them as children, because they ain't so indoctrinated with the ways of this empire. You understand?
Right.
So when I spoke with a brother earlier, y'all like, man, go get him. Go get him. Where he at?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's the mindset, because those are the brothers going to be like, damn, you're right, brother. I have been trying all these things and it has not worked out for me. That sister going to be like, yeah, I done had a few boyfriends. Yeah, I had a couple abortions.
Right.
She gonna understand that, versus some loud, proud mouth Christian. I ain't never, you can't never be perfect. And, you know, that type of mindset.
Right.
And that's the thing that frustrates, you know what I'm saying, the truth. Are we dealing with these bastards so much because they don't understand the error in their ways? You understand? But you take somebody who's suffering, that's sick and tired of suffering, you know what they're gonna say? You're gonna say, you know what, man, you might have a point by this one. I may need to stop, you know what I'm saying, smoking this weed. I may need to stop selling my behind and letting these men take advantage of me. That's the mindset that changes versus a Christian that thinks that they don't never do nothing wrong. You understand? And what we say is just completely invalid because you got braids or a beard. You understand?
That's right.
So shit, keep rocking. Salak, y'all.
Oh, damn right, Adawan. You're right. Give him a hand. That's so heavy. You know, when you come into the truth, you realize that, you know, the spirit of a Christianity is it teaches you to be selfish. It doesn't teach you to sacrifice anything for anyone. Okay, especially anyone that's outside of your household. All right, your immediate household, your family structure. You can't look at another Negro and recognize him as being family. Okay, Christianity promotes the spirit of being self-serving. Okay, you had to come in here and learn the tenets of brotherhood, and we understand that brotherhood is synonymous with sisterhood. All right, we teach a whole class on brotherhood. When is that? Tuesday? Tuesday night is a brotherhood class, man. Tune in. All right. So with that, drop that when we talk about Jeremiah 14:2. You know, the Most High Power hears the cries of his children. That's what it means by, and the cry of Jerusalem has gone up. All right. The holy city of Jerusalem is speaking about the Israelites and their mourning, their pleas to the Father in heaven. Okay. The Most High Power recognizing what's happening with us, but we don't know what's happening with us. We get force-fed misinformation from the time we come out of our mother's womb. All right. The time we break the matrix, we're taught lies about our identity. First thing you're going to put on your birth certificate is, we understand we're cisgendered in here. There is a binary gender code, male and female, right? That's what the Most High Power set into order. But when it comes down to ethnicity, the lies they should have a portion for, you know how they say black, not African, right? Or not Hispanic. We should just have a subtext for Israelite. That's going to be the norm with respect to, you know, our reality. And we might not see that day until Christ comes through those clouds. But that's what it'll be. All right. Anyhow, let's drop that and let's go into, I got a few articles up. It's already 7:42. Man, I got so much. We're talking about, the title of the class is, this is the Israelite School Universal Practical Knowledge, our history class. It's taught on every Monday, okay? I hate teaching this class on Monday because General YAHANNA teaches a class on Monday, and I like to be tuned into his class. But Monday night is the history class, and we go into the history of our people, the true history of the Israelites, God's chosen, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. So the title of this class is the Native Indians are Israelites. Okay, this is the second part of the first class we taught last week. And we just kind of we talked about some of the things that prove that Native Indians are Israelites. And we use the curses, all right? So if you can't go to the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, and I believe we were at verse 32. Yeah, let's go there. Deuteronomy 28. And we can start at verse, let's do that. 28, and we said 32. Okay, yeah, Most High in Christ. Hold on one second. No. We stopped at 16, okay? But there's other curses beyond the breakdown that you'll learn, okay, within this entire chapter of Deuteronomy 28. And we want to touch on some of those other less read curses. All right, Mr. Lockie, if this is too much for you, brother, you know. All right. Okay. All right. We're in the book of Deuteronomy, and we'll go. Man, let's go to Deuteronomy 28 and 21. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 21. You got it?
Uh-huh. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 21.
Right.
The Lord shall make the peasants cleavage unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land whither thou gots to process it.
Most High in Christ. Most High in Christ, your man Reggie, you were here with us tonight. He says the Most High Power shall make the pestilence. What is pestilence? We see these words. We don't speak the King's English, man. We speak the Lashuan Kodash. We come out speaking caveman speech. All right. Our language is very, very simple. Okay. English, however, is a bastardized tongue, and it's very, very. It's a challenge for a lot of our people. Okay. So we said pestilence. What does the term pestilence mean?
Pestilence. Well, the Merriam-Webster's pestilence is a contagious or infectious epidemic disease that is virulent and devastating, especially example would be the bubonic plague, or 2, something that is destructive or pernicious.
Wow. We're talking about Native Americans now. We want to talk about diseases that affected the Native Americans or the Native Indians. You know, just based off of, we said we were in Genesis, the 49th chapter, where it talked about Gad and the troops shall overcome them, right? Was it Genesis, 49 and 19, I believe it is? All right. It was prophesied that the Gadites would be overtaken by a troop. That troop, we found out, was the U.S. the U.S. government, the U.S. military. Okay, but before that, it was the conquistadors, as my brother said. Man, the early European explorers that came to the Americas, whether it be North, Central, South America, and the Caribbean islands. Man, you thinking about Christopher Columbus, and those that followed, that followed him. They brought diseases that were foreign to the land of the North, diseases that the Native Indians did not know, diseases that came from filth, from living a lascivious lifestyle, from being, exposed to whoredom on another level. Okay, they brought these diseases with them across the Atlantic Ocean, throughout the Caribbean. Okay. And I was watching this short. They had a real Joe Rogan, who's a devil, but he always presents a lot of interesting content online via his podcast. He was talking about how this guy that wrote this book about early ancient civilizations, how the early explorers would write about all these massive civilizations that inhabited the jungles of South America, of Central America, of the Caribbean. And then 200 years later, they go and they try to find these great ancient civilizations, and they can't find them. But they do find structures, cities, massive cities where these people once lived. Okay. And what comes to mind is, well, what happened to the people? What happened to those Native Indian people, those Native Indians that were living and thriving in their cities when they came in contact with the European? And the only explanation, the only plausible explanation as to what transpired was disease. Okay. And some of those diseases in the form of pestilence that we're reading about in this curse, name some of the diseases that we know offhand affected the Native Indians. So many. Go ahead, brother. Except my brother said smallpox. Right. Give me another one.
What's the one when they come not polio? Was it
scolio?
Hives. They had hives real bad. It was a hive.
I'm gonna give it to you for time's sake. It's a lot. All of that. I'm pretty sure all of that came from them.
Yeah, lice, mange, all that crap.
I'm sure all of that. And I'm not saying that, we didn't have diseases that we dealt with here, like but, it was things that we could contain because it says that we were thriving. Yeah. Okay. And you can see these structures. They use this satellite imaging where they look at the topography of the geographical landscape, and they can see how the earth has been manipulated by the hands of man, not by animals, not by erosion, by the weather, but by man. They're building these structures, okay? The pyramids and different castles and such like that. You see the ruins, Salakia, the ruins. I'm hungry. The ruins, of the Mayans and of the Aztecs, and people go and visit those places today, like you would go to Egypt, okay? Those places are graveyards because of the pestilence, all right, that spread throughout the land, all right? And you're reading that verse again. What does it say, young man?
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 21. The Lord shall make the pestilence
in the form of what? Smallpox, malaria, viral influenza, all right? Yellow fever, measles, typhus, the bubonic plague, typhoid fever, cholera, and pertussis, better known as whooping cough. Those are just some of the pestilence or diseases that our people, came in contact with. And this is a part of those curses now. We're reading the curses. We said the native Indians are Israelites. The same things that affected them affected us as Negroes, okay? Affected the Hispanics, the Latinos, all right? Keep reading that verse.
Cleave into thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land.
Until who? Until it says he. Until he have consumed thee off the land. This is talking about a people that did this. If you can, brother, there should be an article. You can just Google smallpox blankets, Native Indians. This is a very common, story about American history that, people just brisk over it, okay? And I read a statement by a chief that was surrendering to the American cavalry, the U.S. cavalry. And he talked about his people not having blankets, okay, to endure the harsh winters of the lands where they were forced onto in Oklahoma, all right, from the East Coast. The climate on the East Coast is totally different than that of the Midwest. The climate in the mountains might be somewhat similar to that in the Midwest, all right? But the foliage is different. The landscape is different, okay? Even the animals that inhabit the lands are different, all right? When you get into the Midwest, you got animals there that you don't really have to deal with when you're living in the East Coast, when you're living in the swamps of the East, of the Southeast, all right? So you take a people that are acclimated to living in one environment, in one geographical region, and you march them in the winter, the cold of the harsh winter, thousands of miles into Oklahoma, into the Midwest, all right? Only a devil could do such a thing. Only a devil would force a people off of their native homelands just to make space for them. But this the kicker. They force them off the homeland and then they bring on slaves to do the work for them, to set up their homesteads on the lands that they've stolen. This sounds like the history of the Israelites in America, all right? So continue reading that verse, young man Reggie.
Come. Whether thou goest to possess it.
So we've always had an affiliation with the land, It's important for you to have land, okay? Not to worship the land, but to have a land where you can live on, a land that you can live off of, a land where you can grow crops, a land where you can raise cattle, a land where you can actually hunt, waterways where you could actually fish, okay, and eat the lawful things from the land. The so-called European, the so-called oppressor, the so-called colonizer forced the native Indians off of these fertile lands that they were inhabiting, the lands that they were indigenous to, as they like to be called, indigenous, right? And forced them into barren lands, forced them into no man's lands, forced them into combat and conflict with other native tribes that they didn't know, they didn't recognize, okay? And that was problematic. It's always been a problem for our people, all right? If you got that article on the smallpox blankets, and I wish you could find a picture, an image of smallpox on a child. It's heart-wrenching to see that only a monster could do that to a child. Only a monster could drop bombs on innocent children, man. Only a monster could do that. In here, we have some compassion. In here, we have compassion even for heathens, even for the people that God didn't choose. We have absolute compassion for all people, man. Even when sometimes I feel like we shouldn't, but Christ had compassion on the people. All right. So we are truly following the example of Christ. We got a mission that we're going to address this weekend, man. with the migrants that have been bused and to New York. And just like they did at the border, they didn't want the so-called migrants the Haitian migrants to get anything, or the Hispanic migrants that are trying to come into the country seeking refuge, seeking asylum, because you've created civil unrest in their country with your drug wars, creating these Contras, all for the sake of what? Money? You hate the people. You create these situations where the poor have to provide for their own, all right? And that's what you're going to see Saturday, man, in New York. A bunch of poor men coming to the aid of other poor, defenseless men, women, and children, all right? But the Lord is with us, okay? If you're Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian, you got to understand that. We have the Most High power on our side. It's not a hopeless situation at all, all right? You got the story on...
We can start here. All right. It says, how commonly was smallpox used as a biological weapon?
Right.
Let's scroll down. All right. Actual incidents of intentional smallpox infection may have occurred more frequently than scholars have previously acknowledged.
Right.
Let's scroll down to a situation right here. All right. It says, let me go back up. Smallpox was the most fearsome disease known in the 18th century. Its fatality rate was between 20 and 30%, caused by the variola virus. It will be contained at least by vaccination after the very last years of the century. Before that, the riskier method of inoculation, also known as variolation, was used. This was an intentional infection of an open wound with produced a mild form of the disease. Those who survived smallpox might be literally scarred, but they did have one great advantage from being infected: lifelong immunity. Let's go up and see right here where it says they did it. Actual incidents may have occurred more frequently than scholars previously acknowledged. According to Finn, threats of infection were also certainly used, and not just by military forces against indigenous people. The Fort Pitt case is an infamous. In June 1763, the fort was besieged during Pontiac's rebellion. Soldiers and civilians in the fort had smallpox, as did a few Native American Indians outside. 2 Delaware dignitaries in the fort for a parley were given 2 blankets and a handkerchief out of the smallpox hospital. When they left, they wrote the traitor and land speculator William Trent in his diary. He concluded, "I hope it will have the desired effect."
Damn. The desired effect.
What a bastard.
Yeah, he was a bastard. He was definitely a bastard. Young man, Reggie, do me a favor, brother.
It's like, if I may, I was gonna say that's the oppressor MO. See, we'll ask for things, bunk y'all, and guess what happened? They'll give it to us, but they'll give it to us on their accord. You understand?
Right.
Not out of brotherhood, not out of sisterhood. We said we wanted affordable housing.
Right.
Guess what they gave us?
They gave us the doggone stimulus check.
Hey, they gave us the PJs. They gave us the projects.
Project stimulus check.
Yeah, what they asked for here you go. And then when they do it, see, they paint the walls with lead. They lead paint all of a sudden is causes brain damage. They were doing a study in the big cities like Atlanta, Chicago, and New York. In all the project buildings, all the walls are covered with lead paint. That's true. And guess what? You can't chip away the lead paint. You got to paint over it. Mm-hmm. You understand? And guess what? They realize that this stuff is messing with their brains.
Right.
Did y'all know about the pipes? They talk about the water in Flint, Michigan,
right,
let alone the piping system that's in Flint, Michigan.
Right.
These are the things that we ask for. And because these bastards deal with us unjustly or unrighteous, this is the effect of it.
Right.
You're cold? Well, here's some blankets. instead of us working together to get what we need. You understand?
That's right.
And that's the mindset we have to be in. Instead of going and asking your president for what it is we want, you already know he's going to give us poison. We have to be wise enough and learn how to deal with each other and decide how we going to move and operate in this empire. That's Salaki.
Oh, damn right. You're right. Yeah, our only hope is going to come from on high, you know. But before that can happen, we got to get back to keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, so that our prayers, you know, our cries will be heard by the Most High Power. All right. So is that on the article? Okay, let's keep reading these curses. Let's get with it. All right. So you said verse 22.
Verse 22. The Lord shall smite thee with a consumption, and with the fever, and with the inflammation,
right,
and with a extreme burning.
Consumption, that's something eating you up, eating your insides up. You being pretty much unalive slowly because of this disease process, like cancer. If you ever seen anybody being unalive by the process of cancer, it's literally your body is eating itself, man. It's a disgusting process to watch. You know, I've watched a few women, unfortunately, you know, succumb to breast cancer. All right. And it's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing to witness. Okay. You just pray for the mercy of the Most High Power that you don't have to endure that. All right. And the best way you can get that is by being obedient to doing what he says to do, eating the foods he says to eat, avoiding the foods he says not to eat, like pork, shrimp, crab, and lobster. All right. Not celebrating, you know, the things that he says not to celebrate, like as in our birthday, worshiping ourselves or worshiping other gods when you celebrate Christmas or Easter or Mother's Day. All right. We got to learn to be obedient unto the Most High. All right. So we don't have to deal with these curses. So we said the consumption with a fever and with an inflammation. You think about inflammation, that's just swelling, redness, right? All these things are symptoms of the diseases of that pestilence that the Most High Power warned we would endure, that the native Indians actually endured. All right. And with an extreme burning, and with what?
With the sword.
And with the what?
With the sword.
And with the sword. We understand what that is. So this, who the hell else could it be talking about? Because not only, you know, if the native Indians opted to stay on their land, they were threatened with the sword, with military might, being put to death, being unalived. All right. They had no choice. Matter of fact, I got an article up there about the Native Indian Wars. It's one of the tabs toward the end of the taskbar. There's a tab about the Native Indian Wars. It's a history. Yeah, go up, just scroll up. Yeah, minimize that and scroll up. No, just scroll up. No, hit in the corner, the right corner, down, right, down, right there, down, right there. Yeah, exit the full screen. There you go. Now scroll up. Most High in Christ, the water. You keep going up. We'll just read the. All right. So now we're going to talk about. We talked about the sword, right? So there was never a benevolent association between the native Indians and the early colonists, the early homesteaders, like what's taught in the schools. They teach you that because they want you to look at yourself as equal to them, when they are less than you. They are beneath you, according to what the Bible says. See, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians got to get this idea of them being subhuman out of their minds. So they, at one point in time, they deemed us less than a human. We were equated to what? Cattle. We were owned. We were possessions. And then you had the 3/5 clause, and they talked about, us being 3/5 of a man or a woman, right? Well, really men, because it had to do with voting. All right. And women's suffrage, that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother time. All right. But 3/5 a man is what they deemed us. Then when you go to school now in the 19th century, they want everybody to this whole thing about equality, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a lie. It's like they just slowly, rocking you to sleep with this lie. It's nothing. This lullaby is a lie of equality. We were never, ever, ever supposed to even try to be equal to them. Because in the book of Deuteronomy 7:6, it says that we're set above all the other nations on earth. All right. We are here. They are supposed to be underneath us. But because of our disobedience, the heathen has been put or set above us. All right. Anyhow, if you can read the description, since we're talking about the sword in conjunction with the pestilence that the Most High Power allowed to cleave unto the native Indians, or the Israelites that were disobedient, the Israelites that did not hearken to keep God's law, statutes, and commandments. If you can scroll up, Kowal. There's a little paragraph to the right. Yes.
The Indian Wars began the moment English colonists arrived in Jamestown, Virginia in 1607.
So from the very beginning, from the inception, okay, we already know we read Columbus's journal and what he did in 1492. When he came back in his successive voyages, he was a conqueror, okay? He was an Indian killing hero. It's the reason why they want to embrace Indigenous Peoples Day now instead of celebrating Columbus, because of the wicked, the monster that he was to those that were indigenous to, the Caribbean. All right. Keep reading.
Kanawakan. When the settlers started an uneasy relationship with the Native Americans or Indians who had thrived on the land for thousands of years.
We talked about that earlier. The thriving of the Native Indians on the land for thousands of years, it says. And they just said that an uneasy relationship. I mean, that's minimal. For someone to write that it was an uneasy relationship, there's so many other words you could have put there. It was tumultuous. It was an egregious relationship. It was, a chaotic relationship. But they just said uneasy. So they're trying to paint history over with this brush of benevolence. And that's not what it was. It was never smiles, kisses, and hugs. All right. It was mass unalivings. It was biological warfare. We're talking about the sword now. Okay. Keep reading.
Kanawakan. At the time, millions of indigenous people had settled across North America in hundreds of different tribes.
77 million. 77 million Native Indians. Where are they now? Ask yourself that question. Where are the Native Indians? When's the last time you seen a Native Indian, a Native American? And I ain't talking about them $5 Indians. All right. Keep reading. Salakia.
Kanawakan. But between 1622 and the late 19th century, as a series of wars and skirmishes known as the Indian Wars took place between American Indians and European settlers, mainly over land control.
Good night. Between 1622 and the late 19th century.
300 damn years.
That's a long time, man. That's a long damn time. I mean, you do the math on that. It's a series of wars and skirmishes known as what?
Known as the Indian Wars, which took place between American Indians and European settlers, mainly over land control.
Land that was stolen.
That's right.
Land that didn't have any fences or any gates. Because we recognize each other as family. We were benevolent. It was a benevolent association with the other tribes. until the so-called Europeans showed up on the scene, until the so-called colonizer showed up on the scene with his European ways of wanting of ownership, of rulership and authority. That he was never promised that by the Most High Power.
Mm-hmm.
They take creative liberty with these ideals, with these philosophies. All right, this is where you get manifest destiny from. These are all lies, man. All right, there was never a benevolent association between the Native Americans and the early colonists, man. And in this verse, we're talking about the sword. Those skirmishes, that war is that sword that the Most High Power prophesied about in the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, verse 22. All right, continue reading that, young man.
And with blasting and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until they perish.
And with blasting, those muskets, those firearms, those long rifles, that's technology that the Native Indian didn't have at the time. What does a Native Indian fight with? What is an American Indian? What were their weapons of warfare?
Slice the stone shape into like an axe handle.
Good night. That brother's being descriptive. So we fight with rocks. We fight with damn rocks that we have fashioned into weapons. Literally, initially tools, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so they formed the what? The tomahawk out of what? Stone. Sharp stone, right? What else? They had spears. Mm-hmm. What's the main weapon?
Bow,
the who?
Arrow.
The bow and the arrow, man.
That's right.
That's Israelite culture right there. That spear, that bow, that arrow, that's Israelite weaponry. The so-called European came with blasting, it says, Paul.
Right.
Came with blasting. It's muskets, it's cannons. That's the weapons of warfare of the devils that conquered the troop of Gad, man. Or the troop that conquered Gad, Salakia. All right. And with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. All right, go to 23.
Verse 23. And thy heaven that is over thy head should be brass, and the earth that is under thy should be iron.
Man, just imagine that. You are literally like you're in a box. You boxed in. That sounds like a prison. That sounds like a condition of hell. You don't have any respite. There's nowhere to go. Just imagine trying to claw your way through a brass ceiling or through an iron floor. Everything that they did, they didn't have power in their hand to defeat that troop. They didn't have power in their hand to fight those diseases, that pestilence that the Most High Power caused to cleave unto them. They didn't have a fight in the battle. They were literally bringing knives to a gunfight with those tomahawks and those spears. That arrow was a weapon, man. If you ever watch the movie The Revenant, I think that's a true depiction of how, the scunions that the Native Indian put on those early explorers and those early colonists, man. Those fur trappers. If you get the opportunity, that movie The Revenant is a realistic depiction of the fierceness of the Native Indian. Okay, and they did that out of survival. Okay, but that's another conversation. All right, drop down to 24.
Verse 24. The Lord shall make the rain of the land powder and dust.
Yeah.
From heaven should it come down upon thee until thou be destroyed.
Man, you talking about famine. You're praying for rain. You're talking about powder and dust, man. This is not anything that's going to be beneficial for you to be able to survive or thrive on. You praying for rain. Indians had a rain dance. They were praying literally for rain. But the Most High Power didn't allow that. It's a part of those curses, man. You know, I can't help but to think of 9/11 when I read this verse here. You know, the dust from it's powder and dust. That powder and dust that's covered those babies that get pulled out of those hospitals in Gaza. That's what happened to us in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's what happened to our people in Rosewood. When our villages, when those Native Indian villages were burned to the ground, those longhouses were burned to the ground. That dust, that powder, those ashes, that's what it's speaking about right here. All right? Keep reading.
Verse 25. The Lord shall come thee to the smitten before thin enemies.
What does it mean to be smitten? To be smitten. What does that mean to be smitten?
Let's see here, smitten.
Plastered.
Yeah, just give me the definition of
I got it.
Smitten.
This is the definition of smitten. Strike with a firm blow or be strongly attracted to someone or something.
Yeah, suddenly affected by something. Okay, that's what happened to us, man. That's what happened to the Native Indians here in America. They were. It says smitten before thine enemies, which is really poetic because this negates the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This identifies a victim and it identifies the people that were suffering at the hands of these enemies, is what the Bible calls them. That's not Bankayal's words. This is what the Bible says they were.
Right.
So who was doing all this to the Native Indian? Who was at war with the Native Indian for over 300 years? Who pushed the Native Indian off the lands on the reservations? The Bible describes them as being enemies, not our family, not our brothers, not our kin, not our kindred. The Bible describes them as being our enemies. Who is it? Who's responsible?
Edom.
Esau. Yeah, damn, that's a heavy answer.
The progenitor.
That brother been in class. Yeah, you talking about Edom, you know, or the so-called Edomites, which is the so-called white man today. Okay, that's their forefather. Their progenitor is Edom. Okay, and at one point in time, we were supposed to be brothers, man. At one point in time, we were supposed to be brothers, but the Most High Power from the womb separated us. All right, created the two nations. Okay, so keep reading that scripture, brother.
And flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdom of earth.
Right. So by us being smitten, you know, by this enemy, you know, we fled. We talked about that Native Indian that tried to go to another Native Indian tribe, but that tribe refused them. And so they decided to go to Canada. And before they got there, you know, they got overwhelmed by the U.S. cavalry. Okay. But that seems to be the case. That is that iron, you know, that brass iron, you know, hell that the Native Indian were boxed in. That's the brass and iron hell that a lot of our people are in when you think of the prison system, man. You think of mass incarceration. Who's locked up in these prisons? It's black and brown. Overwhelmingly, you know, statistically, you know, we're the ones that are filling up these prisons. We're the ones that are filling up, you know, the jails. And all of it has to do with the so-called oppression by these our enemies. All right. So we should be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. We got spread everywhere. Okay. And what the hell do you think we were doing in all these kingdoms? Were we in high? Did we have a high stature in these kingdoms? Or were we of a low magnitude? Were we of a low status in these kingdoms that we were scattered to? Because you think about Squanto, I got an article on him and him being, forced to serve in Europe as a slave.
Right.
He's serving in the kingdom of in the United Kingdom, all right, as a slave there. It's a native Indian now. Matter of fact, pull that up. It's an article about Squanto up there.
Okay.
Yeah, you can stop sharing that one. And it's the second one. It's the third tab. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Got you.
You can share that one. Yeah, we got a little bit of time. We're gonna try to run through these things. Since it talks about us being removed into all the kingdoms of the earth, you got to understand that triangular trade, it wasn't just of the so-called Negro or the so-called Hispanics being removed from the dark continent of Africa, okay, and being displaced in North, Central, South America, and the Caribbean. They were taking the indigenous of the land of the North. They were taking those people back over to Europe to serve. They were taking slave labor back across the Middle Passage to serve. The enemies of the Israelites, the enemies of those that did not hearken unto the Most High Power to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. That's the native Indian, man. They served slavery just like we served in slavery. They went into slavery via cargo slave ship just as we did. We're going to get to that in just a few moments. All right. Let's go. Yeah, go to Squanto. Let's talk about him real quick.
Squanto, Native American interpreter and guide.
Right.
All right. There's a brief picture of him. I don't know if you can see it. Let me get this block out of here. Oh, wait.
That's
it's a pop-up.
Matter of fact, I don't know why it's looking like.
Yeah, it's a pop-up. I get it. It says also. Well, it ain't giving me no exit.
Okay, no sweat.
It says also called Tisquantum. He died November 1622, Chatham Harbor, Plymouth Colony,
right,
in Massachusetts. All right, it says Squanto, and God has recent information about Squanto. Let me go down a little bit more.
Yeah, there should be an X in that right corner. I don't even know why they're doing that, bro.
Squanto was born into the Pawtuxet people who occupied lands in present-day Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Little is known about his early life. Some authorities believe that he was taken from home to England in 1605 by George Weymouth,
right,
and returned with explorer John Smith.
There we go.
Shall
be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. So he was born in North America, up in the Northeast, up in New England, and they took his behind back over to England in 1605. All right. At the hands of a devil, at the hands of an oppressor, at the hands of an enemy. All right. Keep reading.
Kanawakan. He returned with explorer John Smith in 1614 and 15. When he was in any event seized with other Indians by one of Smith's men, Thomas Hunt, who took them to the Mediterranean port of Malaga, Spain, to be sold into slavery.
Be what?
Sold into slavery.
Sold into slavery in Europe is the story of the native Indian, man. Keep reading.
Kanawakan. Squanto somehow escaped to England and joined the Newfoundland Company. He returned home in 1619 on his second trip back to North America, only to find that his people had been wiped out by disease.
Been wiped out by the pestilence. Been wiped out by the smallpox. Been wiped out by the bubonic plague. Been wiped out by the whooping cough.
Whooping cough. Yellow fever.
Yellow fever,
hay
man.
fever.
Yeah, malaria
disease.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. During the
you good.
Squanto. During the spring of 1621, Squanto was born. Squanto was brought to the newly founded Pilgrim settlement Plymouth by Samoset, an Indian who had been befriended by the English settlers. Squanto, who had been living with the Wampanoag people since his return from England, soon became a member of the Plymouth colony. Because Squanto was fluent in English, Governor William Bradford made his Indian emissary, and he then served as interpreter for Edward Winslow, the Pilgrim representative, during his negotiations with Maciot, chief of the Wampanoags. Squanto died while serving as a guide to Governor Bradford on an expedition around Cape Cod.
Right. So Squanto, he had a very interesting life.
He was all over the place.
Yeah, he was all over the damn place, but he tried to form an alliance with the early explorers, the early colonists, the enemy. And that's something that we're not supposed to do. All right. Now I don't know if he did that out of the for self-preservation.
Right.
Self-preservation's sake.
Jason said he said emphysema, TB and emphysema too.
Damn right. Most High Christ.
Yeah.
Young man Jason in the class.
Yeah, and Trooper Darash checked in also.
Most High Christ.
Yeah, I forgot emphysema and TB.
My brothers is in here, man. You know, you're learning critical race theory in the Israelite School Universal Practical Knowledge under command of General YAHANNA. All right. Young man Reggie, do me a favor. Drop down to Deuteronomy 28 and 32. And Kowal, if you can, pull up. I got a tab about the normal schools.
Gotcha.
You know, it should be towards the end of the taskbar.
Yeah, it's probably right here. I think I seen it earlier.
Before that, before we get into that though, Kowal, do me a favor, young man Reggie, and go to 26. Deuteronomy 28 and 26, and then there should be a tab about Native American lynchings.
I see lynchings. I don't see the moral schools.
Yeah, that's the one right there. Yeah, pull that one up. Let the people see that. Because when we talk about our suffering, the burdens that we bear in this place are so similar as Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. You know, the oppression that we endure is very, very similar. We're dying to the same diseases, or we're being unalive by the same processes. But we have one common denominator, and that's the enemy. And it's the same. It's the same enemy that's oppressing the Native Indians is the same enemy that's oppressing the so-called Negroes and Hispanics. When are Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians going to wake up to that fact? When are we going to wake up and realize that we're one blood-related family and there's another family or another nation that's against us? And our only safeguard is in us gathering ourselves together and rejecting his culture, rejecting the things that he holds and honors, the things that he holds in high esteem, like his customs, his traditions, his holidays, even his love for money. We have to reject that and get back to our ways, the customs of our forefathers, the things that made Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, honorable in the sight of the Lord. What did they do for them to be honored the way that they've been honored via the Bible? What did they do? I know they didn't move like the enemy moved. All right. So if you can, young man Reggie, read verse 26.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 26. And they carcase.
And thy, meaning yours, a possessive pronoun. That's old English. That's the King's English there. I told you it's a bastardized tongue.
I know.
Thank the Lord you ain't a bastard, right? Go ahead.
And thy court case should be meat unto all fowls of the air, and into the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away.
Most High in Christ. Most High in Christ. So we got a few words in here. Well, we'll just start with carcass. What is a carcass?
Death.
Yeah, it's like a unalive body, right?
Smell.
Yeah. Oh, it's smelly. It's dead meat, literally, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you could consider the carcass of a human being carrion, but to an animal, if you were to pass away in the elements, in the wilderness, you would be consumed by the beasts of the field. You would be consumed by the fowls of the air.
Right.
You would be reclaimed by the earth, right? Right?
Correct.
All manner of creeping thing would be in and out of every orifice, eating all of your flesh, okay? So when would carcasses, when would that be a prevalent thing? When it comes down to us being unalive, these mass unalivings, we talked about the first Thanksgiving, okay? And how they executed men, women, and children, all right? Indiscriminately. He didn't give a damn about you being old or you being young. It was you were a native Indian. That's the only thing he cared about. You were an Israelite. And they've always hated us because of that fact, all right? So my brother, he pulled up an article about remembering Native American lynching victims. So black man, you weren't the only one that were hanged by the neck with a noose, 13 loops on that bad boy, all right? The Native Indians also were lynched in the form of hanging, okay? By mobs of enemies, by mobs of this bloodthirsty oppressor or this colonist, okay? You want to scroll up so we can. I got you at the water. All right.
Remembering Native American lynching victims.
Right.
This week, the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama, opens to the public, paying tribute to thousands of African Americans who were lynched by white mobs from the close of the 19th century Civil War through the 1960s. While lynching is most commonly associated with the blacks in the southern United States, little attention has been paid to the lynchings of other minorities, among them Native Americans.
Good night. And so we're not like the so-called oppressor where we feel like our suffering is more important than anybody else's suffering. We talk about our family members, the Native Indians. This is why it's so wicked and evil for you to celebrate Thanksgiving being black or Hispanic.
Right.
Okay? Because you're celebrating the slaughtering of our brothers and sisters, the Native Americans, the Native Indians, man. All right? And we're talking about them being unalived en masse at the hands of the so-called white man. Okay? Which sounds very, very familiar. Okay? If you can't continue reading.
Colin Wakan, in his book, 2011 book, The Roots of Rough Justice, Origins of American Lynching, Michael J. Pfeiffer, history professor at the University of New York, John Jay College of Criminal Justice, describes lynching as informal group murder.
Okay, keep reading.
The definition that I and many scholars have used stipulates, that there has to be an illegally obtained death perpetuate by a mob, 3 or more persons, and that the collective killing must be in service to justice, race, or tradition, he said.
So the perpetrator of this mob justice oftentimes is these white mobs. And that's been a common practice throughout history, okay? You've seen it. We had a race massacre here in Wilmington, North Carolina. We had one in Rosewood, Florida. We had one in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You know, we've had these riots. We've been victimized at the hands of these white mobs since they came to the North America, since they came to the Americas, man. All right, since they've established their civilization on our lands, upon the bones of the Native Indians, that they unalived, that they forced off the land, that they lynched, that they, did all these evil and wicked, vile things to. It happened to them first. It happened to the Native Indians first. All right? Keep reading.
Mapping mob violence. The end of the Civil War in the U.S. triggered an uptick in mob violence as whites sought to assert power over African Americans freed from slavery. Right. The Chicago Tribune newspaper, Tuskegee Institute, now University, sociologist Monroe Nathan Work and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People began tracking lynchings in the late 1800s. Right. Their work is the foundation of Monroe work today. An interactive map created by R.J. Ramey, founder of the San Francisco-based AUT studio. The map details racially motivated mob violence between 1835 and 1964.
This is really interesting that they have found ways to map via history these instances of violence by the so-called white man, by white mobs on marginalized groups of people, specifically Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians.
Right.
All right. I don't want to get on talking about the Asians because they can take their ass back to Asia. You can go back to China. You can go back to Korea. But when it comes down to the so-called Negro, where is he going to go? He can't go back to Africa. He's not African. All right. Where's the so-called Native Indian going to go? Because you built treasure cities on his indigenous homelands. All right. So here in North Carolina, we have, if you go online, you can do a little bit of sleuthing. And we have, I believe it's called a Red Record. And it's another repository that details lynchings by white mobs. Okay. This is another one of those tools that you can look and you can see all those red dots are instances of white mob violence. And it transcends even into Canada. We're just looking at the continent of North America for the most part. All right. If you can continue. Sorry, 8:37. We'll do 2 more minutes on here.
Come on. All right. It says, let's go back to the article. It says this is the interactive map you're looking at. Ramey said he was inspired to create the map after reading a book about lynching. Right. I realized that there really wasn't visualization out there that showed how pervasive lynching was. Initially, perhaps naively, we started thinking the Tuskegee Institute archives would make up the vast majority of the work. He said, but soon we found a number of works by academic scholars who had also researched archival records and gone back to the original account and newspaper reports and validated the vast majority of the data. In all, Ramey's team pulled data from about 60 scholarly works.
So I just can't help but to think about when we talk about how we're taught to hate the Native Indians. One of the first games you learn as a little boy, you know, you're dressing up based off of the shows that we saw, The Lone Ranger and Zorro, right? From my time, okay? It was a little bit before my time, but those are the shows that I watched. You know, you play cowboys versus Indians, okay? And the cowboys essentially were the benevolent force, all right? That's what we always thought. And the Indians, there was a negative connotation to being the Indian. You didn't really want to be the Indian, okay? No. You always wanted to be the cowboy, right? You didn't want the bow and arrow, you wanted the 6-shooter, right? And I think it's just such a very sick and sadistic thing because the truth is always hidden in plain sight. I mean, when you think about who played on Thanksgiving? Who did they pit against one another on Thanksgiving? You think about how prevalent it was. That was the culture. That was the custom. You know, when you think about the lynchings by mob violence, they already know, you know, they're united. The so-called white man is united with respect to his hatred against you, black man, Hispanic man, Native Indian man, woman and child. We don't love each other the way that they love one another, the way that they'll unalive en masse for the sake of their civilization, for the sake of whatever the hell it is they want, whatever they're pursuing. All right. The Commanders versus the Cowboys, right? What was the name of the Commanders before they changed their name to the Commanders?
Redskins.
The Redskins. So that should let you know the truth about American history. They put it right there in your face. The Redskins versus the Cowboys. That's what it's always been. Mm-hmm. That is as American as apple pie for the so-called Cowboys or the so-called European, the so-called white man to be against the Indians, the Native Indians. Go ahead, brother.
Come on.
Uh-huh.
It should have been a dark a dark face on the helmet, but they put a red man face on the helmet.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. It should have been, but it's just disgusting, And the so-called oppressor, he prides himself, on his subtlety. He definitely the pride of the so-called oppressor is disgusting, especially when you start to reveal things like this about his history, the things that they're not teaching our babies at school. My daughter came home with a project. She was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do a project on 9/11." No, the hell you ain't. You're gonna choose a different topic. Let's do the Indian Removal Act of 1830. Daddy, oh, okay. I heard you talk about that before. And before you know it, she had a whole slideshow. And she's going into different aspects of the Removal Act. She's going into it being a precursor to the Trail of Tears. She's going into Andrew Jackson and his crimes. She even went in and saw who tried to fight for the Cherokee with respect to, the resistance. And I was so impressed by that. Okay. If you Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian, you got to understand that, we have one fight. All right. And it's not against one another. All right. It's Black and brown unity. That's what this is. And if you brown, we consider you Black any damn way. All right. Anyhow, drop that. Let's continue with these curses. Young man Reggie.
Verse 32.
Most High in Christ. Kawhi, you know what to pull up, right? The normal schools. Yeah.
Come on, continue.
Yeah, you continue, man Reggie.
Verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters should be given unto another people, and thy eyes should look and fail with longing for them all. The days long.
Keep reading.
And there should be no might in thy hand.
There should be no might in thine hand. No might in thine hand. When your sons and your daughters are given to another people. Okay. When you think about our sons and our daughters as a so-called Negro, our sons and our daughters were separated from us at the auction block.
Right.
Our sons and our daughters were taken from our slave quarters and sold up and down the river to other plantations. And we'd never see them again. Okay. But when it came down to the Native Indians, they had a more refined, specialized way of their separation. Go ahead, Officer Kowal.
Well, Trooper Kodar said, in real life, cowboys were blacks and Latinos, never white. Although white people were the outlaws. Mm-hmm. That is true. Mm-hmm. Yeah, rob a stagecoach in a minute, won't it? Blame it on the Indians.
You're right. You're right, Officer Trooper Kodar. You're right, man. You're absolutely right. But they don't want to paint. They're not going to teach you that's the history of the origin of America. They're not going to teach you that everything great about what you enjoy in this place, Black, Hispanic, or Native Indian had a hand in it. If we didn't create it, we revolutionized it. We made it better. Okay. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead, young man.
Come on, Mr. Officer. It's about this right here, sir. Wow. Now the Cowboys. Now the original Cowboys was blacks, natives, and American Indians, and I guess the white man called us boys, so we took on the name, but they were called cattlemen. Is that true or false?
That's interesting. I'm not. I can't give you a definitive yay or nay, but it sounds very, very familiar. You know what I mean? I'm not a scholar when it comes down to that to be able to say yes or no about that. But it sounds like something that could actually be.
Because in slavery, we were called boys, and
right.
We took on the name of a cowboy.
Oh, right.
And so they didn't like it.
It's like a derogatory term, right?
So they called cattleman, and they switched around and called themselves cowboys.
You're right, young man, Reggie. I have read that somewhere. You're absolutely
right. I'm gonna
go
brass reeds on them one day.
Mm-hmm. And you know what's so sick about that? They put a damn African. They had an African play the part of Bass Reeves, which is disgusting. They can't even give us the respect of even playing the roles of what we actually, We did this via history. It wasn't no filthy African that did all that. It was a so-called Negro. Pastor Reeves was a Negro, man.
Right.
He might have been Native Indian, you know? Anyhow, they got some filthy Hamite playing Bass Reeves right now. And it's pretty good. I ain't gonna hold you. It's a pretty good show. But, you know, it is what it is, man. It's still sick and disgusting at the end of the day. They had a damn African playing Harriet Tubman. You know, they had a filthy Hamite playing Harriet Tubman. Out of all the sisters that could have played that, I know Angela Bassett would have been a good Harriet Tubman.
Right.
She too fine to be Harriet though. She a little bit too fine to be Harriet Tubman. You know, you had to do a. Now I think Viola Davis is attractive too. You know, but you had to get somebody that they had Whoopi Goldberg play Harriet Tubman. You know, instead of her being known for playing Celie. Anyhow, we were reading in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 32. It says, "Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fill with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand." So when we talk about these normal schools, let's pull that up real quick. Normal schools that affected the Native Indians. And we have a similar issue when it comes down to CPS or, Child Protective Services. If you are not providing an adequate setting, adequate home, home life, a support system for your children, they will be removed from your home. You're not giving them adequate food or clothing or certain amenities like, your utilities. They don't have access to running water, clean running water and electricity, heat in the winter and air conditioning in the summer, man. You might have a guidance counselor communicating with CPS to go in and do a home visit. And they'll go in and they'll sit down at your living room table, at your dining room table, and they're gonna inspect the home. They'll walk through the bedrooms, see where the children are sleeping, see where the children are eating, see the common areas. All right, and you could be subject to losing your children based off if it's not up to par, up to their liking. All right, and you will have no might in your hand in that day. As a Black, Hispanic, or Native Indian, you will have zero might. So it's imperative that you come and get in these classes and you learn the customs and traditions of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the customs and traditions that we're supposed to be acknowledging today as being, our heritage, man. Anyhow, if you can, brother, let's get that article. Okay.
Mapping North Carolina's American Indian schools. North Carolina's American Indian schools were supported by the communities they served and remain a matter of local pride. However, many of the earliest schools are no longer standing, and firsthand knowledge about them is quickly disappearing as elders pass away.
Right. So this is by a state archaeologist, Mary Beth Fitz. And I'm not too sure if I'm pretty sure she's a heathen, but beyond that, she's responsible for recounting what transpired via real time. And these schools actually existed. I just pulled an article up of the normal schools that were in North Carolina. Okay. The normal schools that affected the tribes that were indigenous to the regions of the coast. What do you say? The sand hills, the coastal plains, and the mountains. The Piedmont area, the Piedmont region, and the mountains of North Carolina. Okay, keep reading.
Khan. This is the lady pictured above was from the Waccamaw Siouan tribe, the Waccamaw Indian School. Okay. North Carolina's 1868 Constitution, written when the state rejoined the United States after the Civil War, created a public school system free for all the children of the state aged 6 to 21. In 1875, the state constitution was amended to specify that The children of the white race and the children of the colored race shall be taught in separate public schools.
Right.
Many members of American Indian communities were concerned for the quality of their children's education in this segregated school system.
Right. So this is important. This is I read this article years ago, and I thought this was a very, very important point or pivotal point in the article when it comes down to the perspective of the Native Indian. They don't want to be identified as being black. They don't want to be associated with the so-called Negro because of how we were treated in the sight of the so-called white man or at the hands of the so-called oppressor, okay? And these Native Indians, they felt like their suffering was different because they were here. They felt like the way in which they felt like the American government owed them something, okay? And so this is something that affects us to this day. If you black, Hispanic, or Native Indian, we're one family, all right? We are one blood-related family. All of our uncles, all of our fathers are related, okay? So all of our fathers have a common blood-related progenitor, regardless of what tribe you're from. If you are black, Hispanic, or Native Indian, you're an Israelite, okay? Right. So you have to understand that there is no division. Although the tribes are separated, and we acknowledge you as being a Gadite, or you being a Benjamite, or you being a Judite, we're still one family, all right? And that banner is YAHANNA, that banner is Israel.
That's right.
All right? So they didn't want to be subjected to what the so-called native Negro, to what the so-called black man was being subjected to when they decided to desegregate the schools with Ruby Bridges and all of them, right? You saw it. You saw how they had to bring the National Guard in to stand between those white mobs that would have lynched those children without a doubt. They would have unalived those children without a doubt just for trying to desegregate the school system, just for trying to go to a white school as a black man, a black child. You would have been unalived. I read some of the accounts where they had small coffins, and the KKK was leading the charge in these communities that were, following federal law and allowing these black students to come into these predominantly white schools. Can you imagine going to school and somebody's devil is holding a small coffin?
Hell no. It's crazy.
They're willing to put you in that coffin just so you don't share a classroom with their children, just so you don't stand underneath the flag, and recite the Pledge of Allegiance next to their sons and daughters. This is why blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians must separate, man.
That's right.
We have to separate. And what I mean by separation is remove your spirit from this place. Stop subscribing to the customs of America, American society, of white society. Their way is not the end all be it, man. There's a much better way to live. There's much better customs and traditions to follow, and they're outlined in this Bible, all right? Just show the picture. I just want them to see the picture. You get into the history of these normal schools, and you'll see how wicked and evil, what was transpiring in these schools. Sometimes the kids would get unalived, okay, because of the brutality of some of the instructors, some of the teachers. And those kids they'd be buried behind the school somewhere and wouldn't return home during the holidays. And they wanted to what? Save the man and kill the Indian.
Right.
That was the primary mission for the normal school. They wanted to get rid of the savage and save the man. So they identify the Native Indian as being human, more so than they would the so-called Negro. All right. But it's all the same thing, man. Their hatred, they have a vitriolic hatred for God's chosen people, whether you black, whether you Hispanic, whether you're a Native American, man. We all are hated. Okay. All right. Go ahead, brother.
That's heavy too, because like even today, you can tell Esau has his ways about him. Running these normal schools, they would cut the Native American Indians' hair and talk about how their hair made them look more savage, not professional. But that's the same type of mindset Christians and so-called oppressors has today when you get a job.
Right.
They don't want you to have a beard. They don't want you to have long hair. They want you to, you look like a thug savage. So why don't you just look more white and professional?
Right.
It's the same spirit behind the normal schools translates to corporate America. It's
right.
ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
Who the hell say Esau was a damn standard of beauty anyway, or how to look professional?
Yeah, his body mass index. I mean, they are the standard, because it's their society.
Yeah,
and they don't take into account. They don't consider you, black man, Hispanic man, Native Indian man, woman, and child. They don't consider our bodies. They don't consider anything about us. We are not considered at all. We are a nation that's not desired. Zephaniah 2:1 says, right? This is why it's important for us to come together. Okay, go ahead, young man Reggie.
As a young man, as a child, growing up to be an adult back in the 80s, when I was staying in the Cotton Place that you call Holiday Park.
Oh, yeah, over there, my bird. Holiday Park.
Remember that joint?
Yeah.
And as you know what I'm saying, as I was coming up, in about an hour or two after I left, some racist white people, they came inside there, put up a cross and burned it, and they went to shooting it as I'm from there. So the people I know of, so they have retaliated and started shooting back. And that's when I know the world wasn't this world right here is different here.
Oh yeah, it's definitely different. It's definitely a different world, not like the world where Whitney Gilbert was in, that you see on TV, was it Whitley and Dwayne Wayne and all them? That's TV, okay? When you think about what affects us in real time, like our suffering, our poverty, the oppression that's on Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians is unreal. We live in real time, all right? We don't have time to be worried about no damn Santa Claus and some naughty or nice list when you got crack being pushed in our community still in 2023. People still smoking crack. Our sisters are still aborting their children, aborting their babies, all right? We still got to deal with the school to prison pipeline. There's still not clean running water in Flint, Michigan.
Right.
The Navajos still are dealing with clean running water issues up in Arizona, man. So you can't tell me that there is not an otherworldly force, the Most High Power, at work here when it comes down to us. And I love the fact that we live in the technological age where we have access to all this technology. You got cameras everywhere recording all of the evil, recording the evil and the good now, all right? Before, we didn't have access to see those things. When I realized it was real, when I saw Rodney King get beat down on camera, man, when I saw that, I said, oh, whoa. There's a bigger world than the world that I see with my own two eyes within the microcosm of my family and the community where I live. We got much bigger fish to fry, being Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, living behind enemy lines. It's very, very important that we recognize the suffering of our brothers and sisters. And we should be able to identify with the suffering of the Native Indian. It's very important. There's nothing more important than that. Because I can identify with your suffering, you can identify with mine. We got common ground. We have a relationship now. Beyond us being blood related, these curses are what link us together. All right. And we're gonna have to do a part 3 to this class because we're gonna go into the language. We're gonna talk about the racial epithets about the Native Indians. The so-called oppressor has names that he calls them, just the same way they call us. Whatever they call us. Ain't no sense in getting the video banned today. But with that, I'm gonna clip the class, and I'm gonna call up Kawal Yahweh to read the announcements with the Israelite School Universal Practical Knowledge. coming out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General YAHANNA. If you're not in I.S.U.P.K. under Commanding General YAHANNA, you are not in the truth. Pay your Passover fund, man. $200. If you're 17 years old or older, pay your $200, man. We're going to have the Passover, the 55th, here in North Carolina, man. All right? And with that, you know, we'll bring up Officer Kowal. Salaki, to read the security announcements.
Security.
Yeah, man, Reggie, you know how to adjust the camera?
Security announcements. We the I.S.U.P.K. start at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York.
Pull the knob down. No, just leave that there.
Just down. Yeah, look at it.
There you go.
Just put it down so you can see my head. Paul.
No, don't turn it that way. Just down.
Down on it.
Twist the knob. No.
Like this right here. Press down in your hand. There you go. Look at the TV. You want to get my head, the top part of my head.
All right, now turn it back. Turn it back.
Center it back to him. There you go. That's good. That's fine.
Yeah, that's perfect. Most High Christ.
We the I.S.U.P.K. start at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. New rule for brother and sister. When a new brother and sister come to the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to share themselves with the world. Slocky. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it after 6 months. If a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister.
Right.
There's another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6 month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment. You can find this in Numbers 18:21, Malachi 3:8-10. It means 10th in Hebrew. It's pronounced by Ashra. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you, give to the Treasury Department or teacher. Priest fund. Free will offering for priests is not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like to give. The upcoming holy convocations. We have the Hanukkah coming up December 7th, which is this Thursday.
Right.
You can find us in Maccabees chapter 4, 52-61. All right. Also, too, like a brother said, we got the Passover coming up April 20th, 2024 in Durham, North Carolina. And we have one more cookout left in Florida coming up. All right.
That's right.
We'll get those dates for you ASAP. Also, too, make sure today's Monday, so y'all make sure y'all log in to watch America on Fire. You know, Commander YAHANNA does this thing every Monday, Wednesdays and Saturdays. So make sure you check in, hit the thumbs up. As soon as you come into Commander YAHANNA's podcast, or any podcast, any radio show, any talk show, any lecture, hit the thumbs up button. All right, like, share, subscribe. Let's push this truth throughout the world. If anybody wants to be a trooper in the school, start wearing all black, boots, shirt, pants, headband, and scarf with that Imadium. Men of Israel, we're going to render one curse to the teacher. Men of Israel, Model Shabbat, Imadium, Barak. Yajmatah, Sar, turn face sisters. Men of Israel, we're going to give one curse to the sisters. Men of Israel, Model Shabbat, Imadium, Barak. Yajmatah, class dismissed.
Turn your man Reggie to the cameraman today. You know what I'm saying?